Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the Hidden Chapel podcast. I am your host, Shane Thomas. To all of my viewers and listeners, welcome. I love you guys and appreciate you guys. To all of my OG viewers and listeners, welcome back first and foremost. I know you guys have, a lot of questions, okay? I know you guys have so many thoughts right now. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. This episode is going to be all over the place because there is so much ground to cover that it's going to be everywhere, I promise you. But in the same breath, everything's going to tie in, okay? I did write some notes on my phone just so I could be somewhat organized, but I know it's not going to go how I think it's going to go even with these notes. Like none of this is going to matter. Um but I'm going to try to do my best to like kind of stay on track with it. But again, there's a lot of ground to cover, especially for a lot of my older OG viewers and listeners. So I do want to give them some explanation because last year I did unfortunately stop doing the podcast, but I promise it wasn't intentional. But it also gives some backstory too. So getting into that, um, to yeah, I'll just start off with that. So I'm just gonna let the thoughts flow because that's the best way to do it. Um, I started a podcast called the Unapologetic Vision Podcast 2 years ago, and started started getting some good success on it, talking about topics that were important to talk about, things that I felt like needed to be discussed, and we did a full first season of that for about, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 6 months to close to a year. No, actually, yeah. I'll say it was almost a full year for season one. So when last year rolled around and season two was beginning, um I wanted to bring guests on to the podcast. What better way to do it than having a new location for it too? So ended up getting a new location for the podcast, and ironically, the first guest that I had was my wife. And after that episode, it was the last episode. Not because of anything uh person related. Um Let me just put it this way. God had a way of saying, "You know what? I'm going to put you in a new position. I'm going to put you in a new place, but I'm going to redecorate." Okay? And God meant that literally because the location that the podcast was being done at, it was being completely redone. So unfortunately, I had to stop podcasting at that point. And I'll be honest, I was prideful. I didn't want to go back to my old setup. I didn't want to do it. Because I fell in love with the new setup and how everything looked, how it was going, the topics. Oh my God, the topics we were discussing were really hitting home for some people to where my ability to use my voice and to my urge to want to help people really started the show. So I felt like I let a lot of people down in its own way. But I promise it wasn't intentional, It was in God's will to be like, you know what? Like, let me move you in a different direction. So behind the scenes of all of that though, in the midst of shooting season two, what I wanted to do was, because I was helping so many people and was getting so much feedback from people on how the topics I was talking about were helping them and things of that nature. I wanted to My appreciation back to them was to do merch for the podcast. So, but because unfortunately I stopped doing it, that what was supposed to be merch turned into a full blown passion for a clothing brand. So I started the clothing brand Creator Vision. All right. Creator Vision is all about wearing your faith, your beliefs unapologetically on your sleeve and wearing it in style. Okay. Um, and man, when I tell you Creator Vision skyrocketed, I'm talking about it took off. I was like, yes, God is blessing me with something that not only am I passionate about, but something that I'm seeing the fruit of the labor of the hard work. And God has a way of showing. God has a way of showing you stuff. God said to me about 3 to 4 months ago, Shane, here's what I want you to do. I know Creator Vision is doing good. You got people supporting you. You got people taking pictures in your merch. You got people coming back for more. You got people talking about it. He said, here's what I want you to do. Write it all your stuff down for Creator Vision down on a piece of paper, right? Take that piece of paper, ball it up, and throw it in the trash. I said, God, why? Why would I do that? Why? Why are you telling me to what is working? What is happening that is I'm seeing so much joy out of this. Why are you telling me to now throw it away? God said Hidden Chapel. He didn't say anything else. He just said Hidden Chapel. And I sat there confused. Like, what is Hidden Chapel? What do you mean? That's not a why. That's just it's not the right answer, God. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm in my phone looking at what is Hidden Chapel? Like there was so much stuff that came up about Hidden Chapel. And then it hit me. I sat on what God was saying in regards to Hidden Chapel. So here I am with pretty much no clothing brand at this point. Granted, it was still Creator Vision was still around. Don't get me wrong. No podcast, no direction of anything whatsoever. Um, in this space to where I'm getting so much support and so much love, so much, I'm seeing finances flourish somewhat. I'm seeing, you know, relationships that are being built, you know, and he just kept saying Hidden Chapel, Hidden Chapel, Hidden Chapel, Hidden Chapel. And then it dawned, I'm like, I really like that name. I really, really, really like that name. And God was talking about what was inside of me. What was happening in those moments to talk about what was inside of me. Okay? Your Hidden Chapel. If you want to anybody that knows me knows I'm witty with it. So, um he was talking about what was inside though. Inside my Hidden Chapel to where he then was like, I'm going to, because your favorite number is 2, Shane, I'm going to give you 2 pillars. Okay? I'm going to give you 2 pillars. I'm going to give you your clothing brand back. And I'm also going to give you the opportunity to use your voice again. I'm going to give you these 2 pillars, and you have to do it the way I tell you to do it. So I said, "Okay, God. Okay, God. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do." So I decided to rebrand Creator Vision and call it Hidden Chapel. Um, I'm excited for what's to come with Hidden Chapel, with the clothing aspect of it. I'm excited because Hidden Chapel is going to separate itself from any faith-based, Christian-based clothing brand. Um, from the designs from the fabrics, the all the pieces that I have will be releasing January 1st of 2024. I'm most importantly excited for the message that Hidden Chapel is going to speak about. Which it's gonna get brought up in this episode anyway, but yeah, I'm super excited for the clothing brand, Hidden Chapel. And now that I am back doing the podcast, um, it just feels great to be back in this space. So I think my next point that I'm going to get to within all of that will be a quote that I heard that God has really pushed on me in regards to the podcast specifically. So God has, well, I seen a quote that said a lot of people go by faith and not by well, a lot of people don't go by their faith, they go by feedback. That hit home because what I was doing with Creator Vision, I was going off of people's feedback. I was seeing what was like. A lot of people know, okay, I'll say this because, and this is for the people that have supported Creator Vision. I had the Sunday Service Club collection, right? And that was my quote unquote top seller. So I wanted to base everything that I worked on with the clothing brand. I wanted to focus a lot of that and center a lot of that around the Sunday Service Club. And I started doing a giveaway, of some of the newer stuff. But when God told me to throw all of those things in the trash, I started to understand why. I started to really, really, really understand why he was telling me to throw everything away. So when he said Hidden Chapel, he was like, no, you need to go within to then understand why I'm telling you no. I was moving by feedback and not by faith. So tying that in with the podcast, because with the clothing brand, everything is finalized and ready to go. There's just things that I still want to do before I release it. But with the podcast, it's different. Um the podcast, this episode that you guys are seeing and listening to right now, this wasn't going to come out until the first week of 2024. I'll be 100% honest with you guys. But instead of me focusing on the feedback of, oh, well, people want to hear me do a podcast again, or, are people going to, how will people think about it? I'm not worried about the feedback of it anymore. I'm doing this out of faith. I'm doing this out of God giving me the ability to do this and not wasting it and wasting time to do it. So we're here, which leads me into my next thing, which I want to start this episode off. I want to start this episode off by giving you guys my testimony per se. But before I do that, if there are any topics, because I do want to keep some of the aspects and some of the morals from the Unapologetic podcast into this one. Okay. There's phones dinging everywhere. I apologize if you guys can hear that in the background. Like I said, this is so unscripted and this is authentic. I'm just gonna be real with you guys. I'm gonna be authentic, all that good stuff. But if there's any topics that you guys want me to discuss on the podcast, leave them down in the comments section. And we will get the ball rolling with those things. I do plan on bringing guests onto the podcast as well. You will see my wife again on the podcast. You also see some new faces too. Some I won't say familiar faces because a lot of you guys may not know some of these people, but these are people that I hold dear to myself. These are people that I have grown strong relationships with at this point in my life. And I am looking forward to learning from them and them also learning from me as well. And you guys learning from them and myself as well with that. So again, I want to start off I want to get into talking about my testimony. So, because I know a lot of people were hearing God this and God that and God this and God that. And some people that see that they know I was never this way whatsoever. So I have at this point have to give my testimony. So I'm gonna go way back. Okay, I'm gonna go all the way back to the 90s. I'm gonna go all the way back to the 90s when I was growing up. So I was never a church going person. I was never a religious person. I wasn't grew up to be religious. I wasn't grew up in the church as well. I wasn't grew up in the church at all. So I didn't really have too much of a direction when it came to religion or um, God or anything. Now, granted, I did always know that there was a higher power. I did always believe that. But when it came down to religion, I just had way too many questions. All right. I had way too many questions. Ironically enough, in high school, throughout my whole high school year, I played basketball for a Catholic school. So obviously, I had certain times I had to go to church sometimes, but I think I got more drew away from the church because of the things that I've seen at that Catholic church. I'm not gonna say what church it was. 'Cause I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, just things that I've seen, things that were said to me personally, things that were said to other people in there. I just didn't. It didn't feel like the right environment to be in. Like I grew up in the inner city, so you see certain signs when you see them to where you're like, this isn't the right environment to be in. So from that point, I just told myself, I church isn't for me. I was one of those people that I'm like, you know what? I believe in God. I don't need church to do it. I don't need it. I don't need anybody to tell me what to feel, how to feel, and things of that nature. So, but in the same breath, I apologize if you guys can hear this squeak. Um, Again, this this mic stand has been like in the tuck for so long. Um, but so as I got into my adult years, I wasn't I just got to that point to where, like I said, my pride got into the way, to where I just didn't care. Like I didn't care. If somebody tried to talk to me about God, you can't talk to me about nothing. Like I'm gonna be 100% honest. You couldn't tell me nothing. If you tried to be religious with me, I was walking the other way, not focusing on nothing anyone said to me about it. But then once I had my first son, um, this is when God showed up the first time for me. I was in a very dark place, to where I had a suicide attempt. And to this day, I don't know if it was a real person. I don't know if it was my conscience. But one thing that I do know is that it was God, for sure, that stopped me from jumping off that bridge that I was on that day. And I slowly but surely started paying attention to, not only did it show that my belief for a higher power was real, but there were things that were said when I was in that moment by myself on top of that bridge getting ready to jump off that made me think, was it somebody that stopped me? But then knowing now, like, okay, no, that was God. That was God talking to me. That was God talking to me, saying this, that, and the third. Because I don't want to go into the details of what he said, because like I will break down, and I'm not about to be crying on camera for y'all right now. Not on the first episode, y'all. Not. I'm gonna be vulnerable, like during the podcast, but you're not gonna catch me crying today. But yeah, so that was my first encounter with God. And then shortly, well, I won't say shortly after that, I'll say some time passed to where some gears and questions started to come into play, to where I started looking into religions again, but not necessarily, but still having my pride to be like, no, like I'm not basing my beliefs off of religions or anything like that. So then me and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, but we got together. We went through some dark times. Um and there was a specific time, and this was my second encounter with God. Like I said, God knows that I love the number 2 with certain things. So, me and my wife had a bad fallout one time. And I just remember sitting there saying, okay, God, if she is the person that you placed in my life, if she is the one that is for me, just show me. Just show me. That's it. And not even 10 seconds after I said that, he showed me. He showed me. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't planned. It's not like Jasmine had her eyes on me and seen me, but she was right there in that moment. She was right there. God said, I'm going to place her right here for you. So then that's when I feel like all of the gears started turning for me at that point, to be like, okay, this is a real thing. Now, one thing about my wife, she grew up in the church, actually, okay? But as she got older, she kind of drifted away from it. I'll let her tell her testimony whenever I do get her on an episode. But she had brought up, you know, why don't we go to church? Why don't we go to church? Now, in the midst of, prior to her saying this, she has always brought up, God, and has brought up, certain Christian ways and things like that. When it came to certain conversations me and her were having, they were in one ear, not the other with me sometimes. But when she said it this time, though, I felt convicted to go. So I said, okay, why not? I'll do it, whatever. So I went, and I'll be honest, I had my head down when I walked in there. I didn't speak to anybody. There were people that I know outside of, the church that attend there, and I didn't really say nothing. I just kept it quiet. I paid attention. I did pay attention to a lot of the messages that the pastors were talking about. So it wasn't until I had a conversation with one of the pastors at the church that me and Jasmine attend that really made me think, like, okay, this might be the right way of life for me. This might be the right move. But then that same day, that same exact day, me and my wife had to get together at our house, to where a lot of my best friends were here, and we got to having a discussion about religion. And looking back at it the very next day of that conversation that we all were having, I was disgusted with myself. So my thing was, we keep talking this religion, we keep, saying these certain things, and I'm like, there's so many things that I didn't agree with religions. to where I expressed it in a way that was nasty. It was disgusting. And just the look of disgust that was on my wife's face as I was saying those things, I was like, yeah, no, that's not it. That's not it. So I actually sat down and I prayed. And God then told me, I won't say I don't count this as a third time because I feel like he brought me back into that second time he talked to me. Um and he said, "No, go to church again. Go again." So last year, Easter of last year, I decided and my wife decided to actually join the church at that point. And I joined the church not because um not because God was like, "Yeah, join the church," or I was full-blown Christian at this point. No, like I still had my questions. I still had my questions. But I knew I was taking the step into making the greatest decision of my life. And when I tell you the moment I got brought into the church, when I tell you the opportunities that started to show, which brings me back into the clothing brand too, the amount of support, the amount of love, the amount of wisdom that I have gotten since joining and becoming Christian, man, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, but it's a good overwhelming though. It's good overwhelming. So I remember I had a conversation too, and again, this is where I say everything may be scattered, but it ties together. I had a conversation with one of the pastors at our church, and she's one of my mentors too. Shout out to you, Pastor Jenny. You know what I'm talking about. But I was having a conversation with her during one of the Bible study days, um, and I was giving her the same testimony I'm giving you guys. And I told when I got to the point to where I was telling her, I had so many questions in regards to religions and stuff like that. The way she broke it down to me, though, like, okay, so let me give you guys an example, so therefore, like, you guys can know where I'm going with this too. Um, One question that I used to ask when I used to go to back when I was in high school when I was going to the Catholic Church. Um, One question I would always ask is if God made everything, what made God? At the church I was going to, at that church that I was going to, they always gave you like judgment. They always gave you attitude. They always shunned you somewhat and disrespected you in their own little way. And that made me feel uneasy. So that was a question that always lingered in my mind as to why, you somewhat quote unquote get in trouble when you ask that question. But when I said that to my pastor, she said to me, "Oh, God knows you have these questions." She said, "Whoever got upset with you because you had a question, they boom, get them out of here." But but no, she said God knows that you have these questions and he's going to give you the answers. You just have to talk to him to get the answers. So from that point on, every question that I would ask, that I would not only ask her or ask other people within the church, but I would ask God. God would give me the answers for it. So now I'm in a place now to where again God has given me these two pillars at this point to where I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to get baptized. I'm ready to fully commit and give myself to Jesus and give myself to God. And not sure at the time of this podcast episode releasing, but at the time of this recording right now, I got baptized 2 weeks ago. Um, and just speaking on my experience with the baptism, because I do want to talk about that because that is definitely a part of my testimony. Man, listen, I'm gonna try to not get emotional because I'm still processing it 2 weeks later. That's how serious, it is. And especially coming from where I come from to now, it was a huge, huge step to make. And I'm so glad that I made the decision to get baptized and to give my life up to God and give my life up, just period, to God. Man, leading into the day of, I was late. I was the last one. I had to be on black people time. But um yeah, I was late. They were rushing me to get dressed cuz they had shirts and stuff for us. Um and then to seat us and everything, they wanted to get everything together, and I ended up forgetting the requirement was, okay, we'll provide you with a shirt, just swim trunks and some flip flops and change clothes. I forgot my flip flops at home because I was rushing out of the house. So, and mind you, when I got there, I was wearing Chelsea boots. I was not about to be wearing this this baptism shirt, some swim trunks, and some Chelsea boots. I was not walking around like that. It was not happening. So, luckily, my brother came clutch and had some slides for me. So I was good at that point. But I started getting nervous. Like the nerves really started setting into like, oh, this is real, this is happening. Um and even leading into it too. Um Again, my mentor, Pastor Jenny, the moment I got in there prior to me stepping in when I was late, she seen me and I had my do-rag on my head, and she was standing there in one of the offices, and she was like, she's like a mom figure to me. So she's like, "Son, what are you doing? Why you got that on your head?" But then she noticed that I had my bag, and she was like, "Oh, you're getting baptized today." And I'm like, "Yeah." Immediately she starts crying because she felt like a proud mom and everything. So I'm like, "You're not about to start with me. I'm not about to get emotional right now. It's not about to happen." So fast forwarding back, service starts. I'm sitting there, nerves are setting in. Where I'm sitting at to where Pastor Jenny's sitting at, we both can see each other from a distance. She starts crying again. Then she's on the stage because she's giving the announcements and everything, but she keeps looking my way, and I can see that little tear in her eye. And I'm like, "Stop! You're not gonna get me. It's not gonna happen." So then they start the baptism. Now, originally I was supposed to be the second person that got baptized, but I ended up being the fourth. There was 4 guys and 4 girls, so keep this in mind too, because this does play a big part too, in just the whole beauty of everything. There was 8 of us all together, eight girls, 8 guys. Guys went first. I was originally supposed to be second, but I ended up being the last guy. So my nerves started to go down because I started seeing like, okay, how it was going to be done and things like that. Now granted, I've with me being at the church for 2 years, I did see 2 baptisms. So I kind of seen it, but it's different from when you're in it. So first person goes up, second person goes up, third person goes up. Now it's my time to go up. Now, mind you, the church is packed. My main focus is seeing where Jasmine is and seeing where our kids are. So as I get in the pool, I sit up front, and our pastor, the lead pastor, he's right here. He's asking the questions and things like that. And the whole time I'm looking around trying to see where my wife is at. But long and behold, she's right behind Pastor Jenny. Pastor Jenny is bawling her eyes out. So I'm trying my best not to look at her. Now, if you guys go onto my Instagram, If you guys go onto my Instagram page and look at the baptism video that I have up there, you'll see I'm like this the entire time, like with my hand on my shoulder. Because one, I'm trying to feel, is this real? Like this is really happening? But also I'm trying to calm down my emotions. So um then Pastor Jenny then walks to the front and she started crying and she got me. I started crying. She got me. And here's where things got extremely, extremely real for me. When she put her hand on my head and got me and pushed me back to the water, what was 3 seconds under that water felt like 3 years. All right. It, to be honest with you, felt like 30 years, to be honest. I seen my whole life flash before my eyes. From every single question that I've had about God to any conversation that I should have had with God that I just was too prideful on, to all of the negative thoughts that I've had about the idea of religion and just God in general. I seen all of those things in that one moment. And I seen God's face. I seen God's face. And I know it wasn't I know it wasn't just a figure cuz I couldn't see the actual face. Like I couldn't see the details of it, but I seen the silhouette of God's face. And as he's pulling me out of that water, he's like, I'm going to show you the way. I'm going to show you the right way. And as I got out of that pool and was walking back to change my clothes, I felt so empowered and so blessed and covered that it makes the clothing brand, it makes this podcast that much more worth it, because he is now putting me in the position to not only do the things that I love to do, but I'm doing it through his will. So I know that the passions that God has placed on me, that the ideas and creativity that God has placed on me, the the amount of opportunities that are still coming my way, you know, it's all because of him. It's all because of him. And it's again, it's that much more sweeter because not only are these things that I'm super passionate about and super grateful for, he is the lead role in all of that. I said this to people before, um, but I'm saying it to you guys now. All of this is God's work, okay? I'm just doing this because he has called me to do this. He has called me to do this podcast. He has called me to have the Hidden Chapel clothing brand. And man, I like I said, I'm still processing it, but yeah, that is my testimony. But I want to take the time to say how important it is to give your testimony. Okay, I'm giving you guys my testimony because your testimony is important. It's important for a few reasons, to be honest with you. It's important for a few reasons. So it's important for you to tell your testimony so people can know who you are, to be able to know the real you, and to be unashamed of who you are, to be open and transparent with who you are and being unashamed of that and not afraid to show and express who you are. there's Bible verses that I can just there's Bible verses I can quote about the importance of sharing your testimony. Daniel chapter 4 verse 2. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the Most High God has done for me. Uh First Chronicles chapter 16 verse 8. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the peoples. You can go to Second Timothy chapter 1 verse 8. Therefore do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord, nor me his prisoner, but share in suffering for the gospel by the power of God. Like Revelation chapter 12 verse 11, and they have conquered him by the blood of the lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death. There's the list goes on and on, people. Okay, the list goes on and on in regards to verses that talk about the importance of sharing your testimony. But okay, it's important to share your testimony, and the reason why I'm sharing my testimony too, you don't understand the amount of things that can come your way, the amount of resources, the amount of love, the amount of support that can come your way just by telling your testimony. And that is as real as it gets. All right. That is as real as it gets. You never know who is ready. You never know who you're helping by telling your testimony. There might be somebody out there that is hesitant on giving their life to Jesus, but just heard my testimony, and within the episodes to come, learning more about myself to where my testimony makes more and more sense, that I help them take that leap of faith too, to now give their life to Jesus as well. You never know. So in the comments, I want you guys to tell your testimony. I'll be honest. And if you guys or if you guys don't have a relationship with God, I encourage you to get one. I encourage you to get one. I'm not saying that, you gotta jump in the church and things of that nature. I'm not saying you have to do that. You can do the things you want to do, but have a relationship with God. And I promise you, as long as you put your faith in him and not go off of feedback of him, how I did, the opportunities, man, are going to skyrocket. I promise. They are going to jump through the roof, and you're going to be able to have things come to you and things happen in your life that are unexplained. And the only explanation will be God. And that's just me being honest, open, and transparent with you, man. But I don't want this episode to be too long because it is the first episode. I did just want to share all of that with you guys. I appreciate all of you guys tuning in, whether that is you guys viewing this or listening to this. I appreciate and love all of you guys. And again, I apologize that this episode may have been like scattered around and things like that. I know there's so much ground to cover, but I promise you, in the next episodes to come, yeah, it's gonna be a good one. This podcast is gonna be a good one. Like I said before, I want to still keep some of the structures from the old podcast and talk about those uncomfortable conversations within this podcast itself. I want to be able to do that. So again, leave your guys' testimonies down in the comment section below. If you guys have any prayer requests too, because listen, praying is important. Okay. Praying is important. Asking for a prayer is important. Trust me, I know from experience, okay? But even if you guys have prayer requests, put them down below, and me and my wife will look at them. If she can't get around to looking at them, I'll look at them, and I'll pray for you guys too. All right? I love and appreciate you guys for tuning in. To all of my viewers, to all of my listeners, subscribe, follow, all of that good stuff. I love and appreciate you guys so much. thehiddenchapel.com. The link will be down low in the description for the clothing as well. what I plan on doing for the website as well, I do plan on having the podcast episodes hopefully merge over to the website too. So we're not just on YouTube, but until then, again, viewers, we're here on YouTube. Um and yeah, man, the hidden chapel dot why do whoa, what just happened there? I think God is like bringing me back down to like reality within myself. The hidden chapel.com, the link is in the description for the clothing brand. Again, January 1st, 2024, we will be releasing the clothing brand. Um and yeah, man, I don't want to give too much more. I don't want to give too much more. So I love and appreciate you guys. I will see you guys on the next episode. Stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace. Love you guys.